Hey guys, so we're into the final section of the note, which is talking about writing an equation of a line from 2 points. So when they give you two order pairs and they say, hey, these are on a line together, what is the equation of the line is what we're trying to figure out. So really 2 steps to this. The first step is we need to use the slope formula to find the slope, because we've got to have the slope to write the equation of a line. All right, so we're going to use the slope formula. All right, and just a reminder, the slope formula is m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That's the first thing we got to do. We got to use that to find our slope. So when I get these 2 points, the first thing I like to do is label them x1, y1, x2, y2. Once we've found the slope, then we're going to plug that slope, right, and one of the points. Doesn't really matter which one, but I always use the one that I've labeled x1 and y1. We're going to plug that into point slope form and then solve it down for y. So again, reminder from our last lesson that point slope form is y minus y1 equal to m times x minus x1. So first step, find the slope, all right, using the slope formula. Second step, plug the slope and one of the points into point slope form. Again, it doesn't really matter which point you use, but I always use the one that's I labeled as x1 and y1, since that's what we have labeled here. And then we're going to simplify it down and solve for the y. All right, so let's take a look at some examples then. So example A, they said we've got a line and it goes through the points -2, 5, and 3, 4. So the first thing I want to do, because I know I need to find the slope, is use the slope formula. So I'm going to label my points. So my first one I'm going to call x1 and y1. My second one I'm going to call x2 and y2. And again, it doesn't matter which one you do, right? You just need to make sure your x's are x's and your y's are y's, right? And then also that the 1's are together and the 2's are together. So then I need to plug into the formula of m equals y2 minus y1 over, goodness, keep breaking my lead, x2 minus x1. So that is the formula we're plugging into. So let's do that. So this is all equal to, my y2 is 4, minus my y1 is 5, over my x2 is 3, minus my x1, which is -2. So again, with here, we want to get rid of any double negatives. So I see I have a double negative here, so I'm going to make that a plus sign. So really, instead of 3 minus -2, I have 3 plus 2. And then I need to do the math. So on the top, I have 4 minus 5, which is -1, over 3 plus 2, which is 5. So -1/5 is my slope. Well, now that I have my slope, I need to plug that into the point slope form along with one of the points. So again, we're going to go into y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. So let's plug the appropriate information into the right spots. So again, first thing I want to do, all right, is deal with the y1s, right, and x1s, which I found and I labeled were -2 and 5. So those parts are going to go there. All right, then I want to plug my slope in, my m, all right, and I found my m to be right here of -1/5. So let's plug that information in. So I've got y minus, my y1 was 5, equal to, my m was -1/5 times x minus my x1 was -2. So I'm going to put that in parentheses. Well, first thing, as we talked about in the last lesson, was to get rid of any double negatives. No double negative here, but there is there. So I've got to make this a plus sign. And then I'm going to rewrite it. You don't necessarily have to, but I'm going to. So y minus 5 equals -1/5 times x plus 2. All right, well then we know the next step is to distribute the negative 1/5. So distribute there and there. So negative 1/5 times x is negative 1/5 x. And negative 1/5 times 2, well, I don't know that off the top of my head, so I'm going to write it out. So negative 1/5 times 2. Well, again, to multiply, I need this to be a fraction as well, so put it over 1. And then negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. Over 5 times 1 is 5. So this becomes a negative 2/5. And then that's all equal to y minus 5. Well, then our next step is to get the negative 5 across. So we're going to add 5 to get the y by itself. So when I add 5, I know negative 5 and positive 5 cancel, and I'm left with y, which is equal to negative 1/5 x. That doesn't change. And then negative 2/5 plus 5, I don't know what that is, so again, I'm going to write it out. Negative 2/5, right, plus 5. Well, in order to combine a fraction with the whole number, I've got to put the whole number over 1. Then I need to find my common denominator. Well, the smallest number both 5 and 1 can go into is 5, so I'm going to multiply this one by 5, which means I need to multiply the numerator by 5. So when I do that, I end up with negative 2/5 plus 5 times 5 is 25 over 1 times 5 is 5. And then I need to combine them. Well, negative 2 plus 25, right, that is positive 23 over my denominator stays the same of 5. So I ended up with positive 23 over 5, or 23/5. So my final answer to this one is y equals negative 1/5 x plus 23/5. Now these aren't super pretty numbers, but they are the numbers that we're working with. And so we just continue the process. It's no different even if we deal with whole numbers. All right, so let's go through example B now and take a look at that. So example B says it goes through the point negative 3, negative 1, and 2, 4. So first thing I want to do is label my points. So I'm going to call this x1 and y1, this one x2 and y2. After I've labeled my points, then I need to go in and put them into the slope formula. That's the first step. So m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Well, my y2 is 4, so 4 minus my y1 is negative 1. And then, I can't read that very well. Let me rewrite that. So negative 1, right, over x2, which is 2, minus x1, which is negative 3. So first thing we want to do, get rid of any double negatives. So I see I have double negative on top, so this becomes 4 plus 1. I also see I have a double negative on the bottom, so this becomes 2 plus 3. And then I want to solve that. So on the top, 4 plus 1 is 5 over 2 plus 3 is also 5. So I ended up with 5 over 5. So we always want to simplify that down. 5 divided by 5 is 1. So my slope is 1. Now that I know my slope and I've got a point, I can plug that information into point slope form. So my y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So y minus y1 is negative 1, is what I labeled it as, equal to m is 1, I found, times x minus x1 I found to be negative 3. So then first thing again, always get rid of any double negatives. Well, I have a double negative here, so I'm going to make that a plus sign. Right? I have a double negative here, so I'm going to make that a plus sign. And then I'm going to rewrite it. And it's going to become y plus 1 equals 1 times x plus 3. Then I need to do my distribution. So 1 times x is just 1x, or I can just write x. And 1 times positive 3 is positive 3. And that's all equal to y plus 1. So last step, I need to get the y by itself, so I'm going to subtract 1 and subtract 1. So I end up with y equals x, and 3 minus 1 is 2, so positive 2. So y equals x plus 2 is my equation in slope-intercept form of my line. Now those were nice even whole numbers, and sometimes they work out that way, but as we've seen in past, not always. So don't think if you don't come up with a whole number it is correct, and don't think just because you do that you did it correct. Always double check your work. All right, so that's the process. So I'd encourage you to try example C on your own, then check your answer with mine. So example C, we've got the point 2, 5, and negative 1, 6. So again, process, first thing we need to do, go in and label. So then I'm going to call this one x1 and y1, x2 and y2. Then I need to plug into slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 to find my slope. So m equals y2, which is 6. Minus y1, which is 5, over x2, which is negative 1, minus x1, which is 2. And then any double negatives to get rid of? Nope. So now do the work. So 6 minus 5 is 1, over negative 1 minus 2 is negative 3. And again, as we've talked about, that negative can be on the bottom, that's fine. It can be out front, that's fine. Or it could be on the top, that's fine as well. So now I found my slope, and it is negative 1/3, or 1 over negative 3 means the same thing. So now I need to plug into my point slope form, which is y minus y1 equal to m times x minus x1. So here we go, let's plug in y minus y1 I labeled as 5 is equal to m I found to be negative 1/3 times x minus I labeled x1 as 2. So then check for double negatives, no double negative here, no double negative there. So I can do my distribution then. So negative 1/3 times x is negative 1/3 x. Negative 1/3 times negative 2. I don't know that off the top of my head, so let me do that math. So negative 1/3 times negative 2. In order to multiply, I need my whole number over 1, and then multiply across. Negative 1 times negative 2 is positive 2, and 3 times 1 is 3. So this is a positive 2/3, and that's all equal to y minus 5. Well, then I need to get the y by itself, so it's being subtracted by 5, so I'm going to add 5 to both sides. Negative 5 and positive 5, they cancel, and I'm left with y equals negative 1/3 x stays the same. Now 2/3 plus 5, I don't know that off the top of my head, and I don't want any mixed numbers, so I'm going to write that out. So 2/3 plus 5. In order to add a fraction with the whole number, I need the whole number over 1, then find my common denominator. So smallest number that 3 and 1 will both go into is 3, so I need to multiply the denominator here by 3, which means I need to multiply the numerator by 3. So this becomes 2/3 plus 5 times 3 is 15, over 1 times 3 is 3. Then when I add the numerators, 2 plus 15 is 17, over my denominator of 3. So I ended up with positive 17/3. So there we go. My final answer, y equals negative 1/3 x plus 17/3. Again, not super pretty, but that are the numbers that they gave us to work with. All right, so I'd encourage you to try example D on your own, then check your answer with mine. So example D says it's a line that goes through the point negative 2, 3, and negative 1, negative 1. So first thing I want to do, label my points so I can find my slope using the slope formula. So x1, y1, and x2, y2. Then plug them into the slope formula. So m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So m equals y2 was -1 as I labeled it, minus y1 was 3, over x2 was -1, minus x1 was -2. First thing I want to do, get rid of any double negatives, which I see on the bottom. So negative and negative make a positive. So I've got -1 plus 2 on the bottom. So then do the work. -1 minus 3 is -4. Over -1 plus 2 is +1. Well, -4 over 1 is the same as just -4. So I have a whole number slope of -4. So now that I know my slope and I've got a point to work with, I got to plug into point slope form. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So y minus my y1 I labeled as 3 is equal to m, which I found to be -4, times x minus my x1 I labeled as -2. Well, again, want to check for double negatives. Not one there, but there is one there, so that needs to become a positive. And I'm going to rewrite, and so this is y minus 3 equals -4 times x plus 2. Then I need to do my distribution, so -4 times x is -4x. -4 times +2 is -8. And that's all equal to y minus 3. Last step, as you know, get the y by itself. So the -3, I'm going to add 3 to get rid of it, which means I need to add 3 over here. So -3 and +3, they cancel, and I'm left with y equals -4x is not affected, and then -8 plus 3 is -5. So my final answer, y equals -4x minus 5. All right, well, this is the last portion of this sections of notes. So if you have any additional questions, please let me know. But otherwise, you should have what you need to begin and complete worksheet number 4.